Good morning, biology students. It's Ms.H here. I want to thank those that attended the Zoom meeting yesterday. It was so good to see all of your faces, to answer any of your questions. I know that I'll miss you guys very much, and that I hope that all of you are staying safe and staying healthy, and also making sure that you're praying for those that are sick, and that they get better soon. Yesterday, I just wanted to touch base with you. The assignment that I gave you was to watch the Amoeba Sisters video, and I hope that some of you found that helpful when you were doing your worksheet. I know I went through a couple of the worksheets, and I saw that you were doing okay on that, but I still have some that I want to check to make sure that everybody is fully understanding the concept of multiple alleles and codominance. With that being said, I want to go through what I feel is the most important information about this topic with you and what you could take away from this information. So we talked yesterday about multiple alleles and codominance, and one example of that would be the ABO blood group system, okay? And so that ABO blood group system is the system that you use to determine what blood type you are. So you can be blood type O, AB, A, or B. But then some of you are probably thinking, but Ms.H, I know my blood type is O positive. Well, O positive, the positive denotes a different system within blood types called the RH factor, RH system. And it's determined by the presence or the absence of a specific protein that was derived from the rhesus monkey. And so if people have that protein present, then they're considered O positive. And if they don't have that protein present, they're considered O negative. So that's a different system. And I just want you to know that there's other systems too within our blood type. You could have a blood type M or blood type N, but they don't get talked about as much as the ABO blood group system does. Okay, and so that's the main important system that we're going to talk about. I'm just curious as to if any of you know what your blood type is. You probably don't. I know that I didn't find out what my blood type was until I was probably in high school. And I had to ask my mom, and my mom told me. So if you're wondering what your blood type is, ask your parents. They probably know. But if you didn't, and if they don't, if your parents both know what their blood type is, you could probably get a good understanding of what the possible blood type you could have, depending upon what their genotypes are. Because we know that blood types are, in fact, inherited, just like Mendel discovered with his traits with his peas, that those were traits that were inherited from their parents to offspring. And so this idea that blood type can be passed on from your parents to you is pretty cool, I think. And so yesterday we did a worksheet on determining those possible blood types, and I want to go through the phenotypes and the genotypes of the ABO blood system with you. So the phenotype is the physical expression. It's the exact blood type that you are, O, AB, A, and B. And when we talk about the genotype, we talk about the letters or the alleles, the two allele combinations. So we need to understand what our alleles are first. So the alleles, when I say allele, what I mean is if we think back to Gregor Mendel, Gregor Mendel had two alleles and they were defined or designated by a capital letter and a lowercase letter. Remember, we have the capital P and the lowercase p, and the capital P stood for the dominant trait and the lowercase p stood for the recessive trait. Well, in this case, when we're talking about codominance, we're going to have two alleles that stand for the dominant trait and one allele that stands for the recessive trait. In this case, we have the capital IA and the capital IB, both being our dominant alleles. And the lowercase I is going to be the recessive allele. So when those two alleles combine, we get the genotype, as stated in this column here, okay? In order, or for us to understand what codominance is when both of those alleles are expressed at the same time. And this is why we get AB blood type. It's because both the dominant allele A and the dominant allele B are being expressed or shown at the same time. The only way that you can get the blood type O is if you have two parents that are recessive for that trait, okay? So I hope that gives you a little bit of a better understanding in relations to the dominant alleles, there being two, and the recessive allele there being one, okay? So the genotypes here we have can be, what I'm showing you here is that you have the recessive genotype being lowercase I, the dominant, one of the dominant genotypes being IA, IB for blood type AB. In this case here, I've only given you the homozygous dominant and the homozygous dominant genotypes for blood type A, blood type B. You can have a heterozygous genotype for blood type A and a heterozygous genotype for blood type B also. So if you got to a problem and they asked you what is a parent, let's say for instance, the mom is heterozygous for blood type A. Heterozygous for blood type A means that you have a capital IA and a lowercase I, okay? And then heterozygous for blood type B means that you have a capital IB and a lowercase I. And some of you on your worksheet wrote just the letters out, and that's okay too. So like I gave you this example up here. The proper denotation is capital I or lowercase I, but if you wrote OO, or if you just wrote AB or AA, that's okay too on your worksheet. I just want to make sure that I'm explaining it to you in the correct terms, okay? So let's look at our worksheet. So I want you to stop the video now. I want you to go get your notebook and let's go through the answers to the worksheet together so that I can make sure that you guys are checking those with me. All right, so now that you have your notebook, let's look at problem number one. Problem number one on your worksheet from yesterday says the father is type O and the mother is type O. For this, you should have on your Punnett square that all of the boxes should be filled with the genotype lowercase I, lowercase I. And in this case, you're going to have 100% of the individuals or the offspring being blood type O and 0% being A, B, or AB, okay? For number two, you're going to have the father is type A homozygous, which means that we have capital A or capital IA, and then the mother is type B homozygous. So you could have capital IB, or just B and B. So those are your parents. When you cross and you determine what your boxes are, you're going to find out that all of the individuals or the offspring in the boxes are going to be capital IA, capital IB, which denotes the blood type AB. So 100% of those individuals are going to be blood type AB. Okay, let's flip to the back. All right, so this is what I was talking about with the example before. The father is type A heterozygous and the mother is type B heterozygous. So in this case, we have a father who is type A heterozygous, meaning that you have for that parent, capital IA, lowercase I, and then for the mother, you're going to have capital IB and then lowercase I. And for this cross, you're going to determine that the offspring, all of the blood types of the offspring are going to be, there's going to be an equal percentage of having an offspring with blood type O, A, B, and AB, and that's going to be 25% for all of those. For number 4, we have the father is type O and the mother is type AB. So we have the father being lowercase I, the mother being capital IA or capital IB or just A and B. And when we cross, we determine that 50% are going to have the blood type A and 50% are going to have the blood type B. And then for the last one, the father and the mother are both blood type AB. So in this case, we're going to have the father and mother both having the same genotype, capital IA, capital IB. And when we cross, we determine that there's going to be a 25% chance that a 25% chance that one offspring is going to be blood type A, one offspring is going to be blood type B, and then 50% chance that an offspring is going to be type AB. So I hope that you guys checked that as we went along so that you make sure that you are understanding this. We're going to have some type of assessment over this material, probably maybe Friday, if not Monday. So that was what I wanted to talk about in relations to making sure that you understand the phenotypes and the genotypes and how to do Punnett squares with blood typing. So now comes the question, who can donate blood to whom and who can receive blood to whom? So some of you probably have heard, if not recently, but in the past, of there being blood shortages and the need for people to donate blood and whatnot. And so scientists, or I'm sorry, doctors, can determine blood types by using specific tests that they have. But I wanted to go through this picture with you to kind of explain to you the importance of making sure that the correct individual gets the correct blood type when the donations happen. Otherwise, there could be dire consequences, including death, and that's never good. So on the red blood cells, which we have in the top row here, there are surface proteins or surface antigens that are present. And those antigens have a specific shape. And these kind of look like the viruses that we've been seeing on the news with COVID. But these are surface markers on the surface of the red blood cell. And they have a particular shape. So antigens in the blood cell, blood type A is going to have A antigens on its surface. Blood type B is going to have B antigens on its surface. Blood type AB is going to have both antigens on its surface. And then blood type O is going to have no antigens on its surface. Okay. And so we have antigens on the surface of the red blood cell. And then we have antibodies in the plasma around the red blood cells. And the antibodies are protecting our bodies against foreign invaders. And those have specific shapes that receive those surface markers. So we have in blood type A, anti-B antibodies. In blood type B, anti-A antibodies. And in blood type AB, we have no antibodies. In blood type O, we have both anti-A and anti-B antibodies. Okay. And so when an individual receives blood from another individual that is the wrong blood and that they've made a mistake, that means that, let's say, for instance, a person with blood type A gets blood type B as a mistake, or gets blood type B as a mistake. So this means that the surface antigens interact in a way with the antibodies that are present in blood type A, and these anti-B antibodies fit the shape of the antigens on the surface of the B red blood cell. And what that means is there's some type of clumping that takes place, or what we call agglutination. And that clumping causes a blood clot, and the blood to clot, and that's not necessarily going to be a good thing for an individual. So notice how that there is no antibodies present in blood type AB, which means that blood type AB is the universal recipient. It's the one blood type that can be receiving any other blood types. Blood type O has both anti-A and anti-B antibodies, so it can't be received by blood type B. It can't be received by blood type A, but it can be donated to all of the other blood types. So it's called the universal donor. Okay, so in cases of an emergency, blood type A or O can be given to a person with blood type A, and then so on and so on and so on. And you can kind of see that on the picture here. So the antigens and the antibodies can't interact in a way that causes clumping. That's a bad thing. Okay. So tonight, what I want you to do is I want you to finish the rest of this worksheet. I'm going to post the next 2 pages. You're going to go through and answer some questions down here in relations to what we talked about with yesterday. It's going to ask you about some paternity, whether the father is the father, and then you're going to kind of go through these problems and answer the questions as you see fit. Okay. So I hope that you got the main parts of the lesson today, that blood types are an example, or blood group. The ABO blood group is an example of multiple alleles and codominance, and that you always want to make sure that if you're giving blood or receiving blood, that the person has the correct blood types to do so. Okay. Thank you all for listening, and get going on your homework.